Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. This is a sped up version of today's live stream video. We're working in scale here, and here I am stamping out a 1" by 1" little, they call them inchies, okay? And inchies got really popular at some point in time. We discussed it during the live stream, trying to figure out kind of what that era was in stamping and when that kind of trend took place. Okay, here I am stamping on a 2" by 2" piece of clayboard art tiles. And I mean, I'm just doing it on that material because I already have these set sizes in that. But here's a little scene right there featuring a light source, which is the background in the form of the cloud with moon. We have our midground with the lakeside cove, the small version of it, solo canoeist, and the foreground with the reeds. So that's just to say that you can get, a pretty full statement of imagery in the form of a scene on whatever size area that you're working in. Like I said, inchies are going to be limited, but you can still make a pretty interesting statement in such a small space. Okay, so this is the standard card size piece right here in the quarter page 4¼ by 5½ piece. And I'm just showing in this live stream, or the live stream that it was in, just some different variations based on area. Naturally, the larger the scene, the more imagery you can include in it. But it doesn't have to be something where when you're stamping a much larger piece, or just a little bit of a larger piece, it doesn't mean that you're going to have 20 additional stamps or something like that if it's 8 times larger. You certainly could, and it would open up a lot of different possibilities. But here we fill up the sky just with one additional stamp, and that's the cloud, but we use it in repetition, going for the extra forms up there. So here's a much, larger version. I'd say it's, pretty much a much larger version than this 2 by 2". You can fit at least 4 of those and more onto that 4¼ by 5½. All right, the gigantic one, the 17 by 11" tabloid piece of cardstock. I hardly ever do this, and I'm just showing those 3 previous scenes up there. But this 11 by 17 is going to be related to in the foundational pieces. I'm going with a couple of the impressions of the Lakeside Cove Small, and then a couple more versions of the rocks and pines and rocks. And then there's the larger Lakeside Cove on the side there. So, and then there's the larger pines and rocks stamped flush left. Okay, then we'll balance it off with another one of those impressions on the right-hand side. And we have about a little, 3/4 inch space, so I just stamp a little bit of the left-hand side of that pines and rocks large. All right, so going into the background here, we could do all kinds of backgrounds in here. It's really wide open. We could just do a nighttime sky or something like that, but if you want to get some additional imagery into play and really push depth, there are several impressions of the pine row in the background there in various shades of gray. And in the foreground here, I'm using the ledge stamp to kind of reiterate what's going on the other side of this lake, which are rocks. Okay, so again, this is a really large place. After all, it is 8, the equivalent of 8 quarter-page cards, because this is, again, it's tabloid at 11 by 17. Okay, but I just filled in that foreground with 1 stamp. I just used it many times. Okay, this is the tall peak being used, and I wiped off the bottom of it so that it kind of fades off into whatever you want to stamp down there. And I did it knowing that I was going to stamp the cloud, or assuming I was going to, because I like to fill in that area above the tree line and those rocks in the distance, the peaks That was, by the way, that was rocky peaks used to the left and right side of the tall peak. And again, I'm wiping off the bottom so that it kind of fades out so that I don't get a real harsh line at the bottom of those mountain stamps, okay, and they just kind of fade off. And it looks like they're just kind of fading off into some cloud cover or mist or something like that. And it kind of gives the mountains a little bit of extra majesty in the way that they would be above the cloud line, okay? So again, just using some additional rocky peaks in the distance, and here I'm filling in with some additional clouds, which will give me a little bit of extra texture to establish color on. When there's a lot of empty space on any size of scene, but especially something like this 11 by 17, if you don't fill it up, there's just so much space in there to have to kind of, maintain a certain degree of, I don't know, kind of a smoother applications of media. I mean, we can go for something much more kind of strong, stronger in appearance with doing something like a, I don't know, like a very expressionist type of application of media, but on this one I'm just going to be using dye-based inks. All right, taking that same Pines and Rocks stamp that I stamped to the side of the coves in there. I'm using it mostly for the trees, so I'm applying it on both sides of that ledge stamp. Sometimes it's right on the top of the ledge, like the trees are growing out of the cracks in that granite, which you often see in that type of situation out in nature. It's, I don't know, trees, sometimes it's kind of bizarre, they're growing out of a crack, and I have a feeling because it's the seeds and little saplings can get a really good foothold as opposed to, just kind of getting washed out with any rainstorm or something like that. They really get a nice foothold in rock, and they just grow out like that. Adding in some additional leafless pines here to give that, I guess you'd call it a tree line. You want to give it some variation and, I don't know, just a little bit of a textural variety with, a leafless tree within that space. Okay, and one of the things I always do, which I mentioned to my viewers, was I always kind of leave a space open, and that kind of creates this space for us as the viewers of that scene to go in there and sit on that, side of that ledge. Okay, going with a quarter page card of a waterfall scenario here. Okay, so that's mostly the sizes that I work on. But again, in this video is all about variety and just to really showcase that there isn't an ideal size for Stampscapes, okay? Now, maybe the inchies are not the ideal size or something like that, but you can get expression within that small space. But quarter page cards, full-size pieces, double full-size at tabloid, you can do that. Certainly anything in between, like, I don't know, what are the ATC sizes and 2x2 tiles. People stamp on actual tiles. People stamp on wooden bowls and things like that they've turned. Okay, so there's not really any set format in which Stampscape stamps can't be utilized. They're designed to be as universally, capable as in terms of their application as possible. Okay, so just like that ledge in the back, or the previous video on that very large format, the boulders with lichen are used both in the foreground and, kind of in the near distance, I guess you can say, at the base of these trees. Okay, this waterfall type of scenario here, in conjunction with the tree trunks, are one of the, I don't know, the scenes that I go to periodically, and ones that I really enjoy doing. I love doing all kinds of little effects with waterfalls, and so on and so forth. So those are the tree trunks and the tree trunk trio, kind of just being, I don't know, I guess you can say they were being planted in the I don't know, this rocky waterfall scenario here. Okay. I got a little blotchy on that impression there. I don't know, my ink pad it looks like it was running out of ink. I re-inked it, but you know, when you're using so much ink on like an 11 by 17 piece, it goes pretty fast. I probably should have re-inked. But that being said, okay, now I'm just showing people that you can use, you know, kind of like a piece like that, and you can do what they call spotlighting, kind of mount it right over the top of that. All right, so going in here with the oak branch stamp to just kind of soften up some of those really harsh angles that those trees create, and the top of the card. Okay, so softening that area and also creating a more contained kind of vignette of this scene. All right, going in the foreground here with the oak branch stamp as well. You can see where I stamped it on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and again, that kind of frames the entire piece off. And here, stamping the branch like that on the other side of those rocks, it kind of breaks up the, you know, the kind of the harsh line of those rocks against that water area. Okay, this is a ATC sized piece of clayboard art tile. Okay, it also comes in things like you know, the 2x2 and the inchies, and things like 4x4 inch, and so on and so forth. Dominoes, I believe they still have those. But again, I am using the babbling brook, and I used rocks and leaves down there, stamping that little fisherman down there, and then adding in a little bit of extra texture. So there you have kind of that scene, and here you have this kind of embedded look. I was telling my viewers, wouldn't that be kind of cool to mount that on there? People used to do that. They used to call it spotlighting, and I think for the most part they would keep. I mean, there's different ways to do it. You know, the spotlighting is where you just have something kind of that sticks out. And I was just telling people that it would be kind of interesting to do this like 3-layer type of spotlighting scenario. I don't know. Maybe if you do 3 different layers of it, it's no longer called spotlighting. I don't know. Going in here with the rocks to add something under the water, and I do it in various values there, so that some rocks will be a little bit more visible than others. And here I am going in the kind of the bank of the lake with that. Okay, so here's all kinds of different sizes here. Sometimes we're going portrait, landscape, with the kind of the smaller pieces. The more kind of, I guess, standard size card making sizes, you know, projects. A lot of people don't do, including me, work on 11 by 17, but sometimes it's fun too. And in the next video or live stream, I will be coloring that huge one. So that should be fun. Okay, thanks so much for watching.